good evening, and welcome to my channel, Positivity in Motion, where I share tips with you weekly to help you kickstart into having a fantastic week. I am Victoria, and I would like to welcome you again. It's my pleasure to be here to share with you each week. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any comments, feel free to leave those comments so I can make sure that the topics that I cover are things that you are interested in. I have something tonight that I want to talk about, and it's givers and takers. Now, how I came about this, I was listening to YouTube, and I thought this was very intriguing for me. What it was talking about was a young man shared that he and his sister came home from school, and his mom sat them down and wanted to give them the talk. You know how parents do, kind of like what I'm doing now, trying to help you stay on the straight and narrow. And what the mom said to his sister was, and this is not her real name, Sally, I hope that when you decide that you're in love or when you fall in love, that you don't fall in love with a taker because you are a natural giver. And givers have no limits and takers have no boundary. I was like, wow. So when I think about the difference, even from that example, it reminded me of being a kid and how, you had your marbles or your toys or even cookies, whatever you had, and you like to share because you're a giver. You like seeing your friends happy and they're enjoying the cookies or your marbles or whatever it is, and that gives you pleasure. Whereas the taker, with the same amount of cookies or marbles, they might have more, they might have less. They don't like to share. They don't like to give people their marbles. They like to take your marbles or your cookies. So givers like to give and share, and takers like to take without giving back. And remember, in prior videos, I talk about the boomerang effect, where what you give out comes back to you. So obviously, takers aren't familiar with that. So let's talk just a little bit about what do you do when you're dealing with the taker, because most of us inadvertently will, at some stage in our life, have those people cross our paths, whether it's in relationships or at work, friends, neighbors, whoever. There are lots of takers out there and lots of givers too. So when you're dealing with the taker and you're feeling the pinch that you're being taken advantage of, it's important that you set clear boundaries. You need to be assertive in doing that and set clear boundaries. You want to communicate with the person how you're feeling. Now, from my research, it said that using I statements is a good place to have that type of conversation with, because depending upon who you're dealing with, the conversation could be very volatile or it might not go very well, whatever the circumstances might be. But when we use I statement, that sort of lessens and give a less of an opportunity for the person to push back. So you might say something like, I statement could be, I feel overwhelmed when I am constantly having to give and support you, making accommodations, without your reciprocating that to me. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Hmm? So they've heard what you said, and it depends on them how they're going to react moving forward. Now, this reminds me of something that my father said. I remember when I was approaching the dating stage in my late teens and working and interchanging and getting involved with people, was trying to learn how to navigate and deal with people, because sometimes it can be difficult. And I asked my dad, how do you know if a fella likes you or if someone loves you? And my dad said, there was a very popular song back then. It was called when a man loves a woman. That's what it was. And my dad said, honey, that song is true. He said, when a man loves a woman, that was the name of the song. It could also be when a woman loves a man, they will do what they need to do to protect you, confess you. And there's no limit to what they'll do. They will climb the tallest mountain, swim the widest ocean, and be in the depths of the deepest sea because they love you. And there's nothing that you can do to change that. And I was like, okay, wow. That's kind of like a giver and a taker. And in a relationship, that's what a giver would be like. They would do things, hopefully, to make you happy and secure in whatever the relationship is. Partner, co-worker, even children can be takers. They can ask and take and want everything. But when someone cares about you, they won't take advantage of you. And that's what's so important, that we remember that we're not being taken advantage of. That we're not taking advantage and that we're not being taken advantage of. Now, after you communicated your desire to the person, they get to decide what they want to do with that information. Not you. They do. If they care about you again, they will make changes and try to do what's right. And if they don't, unfortunately, you're going to keep getting the same thing. So what are you going to do now that you've shared how you feel and they're not listening to you? Well, you will need to evaluate that particular relationship and see if it's something that you want to continue. If it's not benefiting you, that's something seriously that you want to consider. And since they're not listening and haven't listened, you need to consider reestablishing and setting firmer boundaries. Now, setting boundaries can be very catchy because a lot of times we set the boundary and then we're like, okay, all right, you didn't mean it. Okay. No, that confuses the person, and you're training them or teaching them how to treat you moving forward. So when you set your boundaries, you want to stick with it. If you say this is going to happen, you need to make sure that that happens because your well-being is very important. So when dealing with takers, it is essential to avoid enabling their behavior. And when we're flip-flopping back and forth on something we said we're going to do, that could be seen as an enabler, and it can confuse that particular person. You want to be consistent with whatever the demands are, and you want to make sure that your needs are not being neglected. You want to engage in constructive discussion, and you want to avoid confrontations and conflict. You want to make sure that that person understands that it is your desire to have better communication in the relationship so that it is mutual. It's a give and a take from both of you, not a take, or give, take. So you want to be mindful of that. You also want to be mindful that you're not trying to communicate with passive aggressive behaviors. And passive aggressive behavior, that's what I did sometimes. Instead of communicating, I just shut down because it was not going to be good. And in time, I learned that I needed to reevaluate and made my personal decision. But you don't want to use passive aggressive behaviors. And what that is, it is indirectly expressing negative feelings or frustrations. And that can often be subtle, and it can be nonverbal, a certain look you might give, or it can be verbal, something you might say. When communicating with the taker, passive aggressive is not recommended. It includes maybe sarcasm, giving backhanded compliments, or using subtle forms of sabotage. And depending upon the relationship, sometimes we might get caught up in that. You don't want to get caught up in that. Why it may seem like, you know, a way to express discontent, is not productive for the behavior itself, and it can have or lead to future misunderstandings in the relationship, which is what you want to avoid. You really want to avoid that, because remember, if at all possible, you want to continue the relationship in a healthy manner. I'm not saying that being a taker is negative, negative, negative. I'm just saying that if it's not conducive to a healthy environment for you, then you need to evaluate what you want to do with the relationship. Now, why might it be difficult for someone who's a taker, there's a lot of them out there, to reform? One of the reasons is takers have developed these behaviors over time. A lot of times since they were very, very young. It has been ingrained and reinforced within them over time. They have developed the mindset that their priority usurps priority over anyone else. They're above anyone else. And it might be challenging for them to see that they need to make a shift when they have been benefiting. Overcoming these obstacles also may require introspection for them. That can be hard. We've talked about that in other videos. And you have to have a willingness to change these long-term beliefs that we've had. We have to be able to be agreeable to make the change. That we practice communicating openly, assertively, and effectively, and that we show empathy and generosity towards everyone, knowing that as we give, it's given back to us. So that's my take on givers and takers. There are a lot of takers out there. There are a lot of givers out there. Sometimes if you have a balance, sometimes you give, sometimes you take. That's natural. But I'm talking about, and the advice of that particular parent to their children was, when you have a taker and you know they're a taker, all they do is take, you have to be able to set clearer boundaries, be assertive in communicating, and determine what you're going to do so that you can remain healthy and whole. You also might want to consider talking with a trusted friend, someone in clergy, depending upon what the situation is. And do not forget to seek professional help if you need that. Because sometimes, depending upon the situation that you're in, a third person may be able to help you see a different picture than what you're actually able to see, because they have been professionally trained to assist in that. And you might be in a situation where you can't just readily say, this is my boundary, you follow this or I'm out, or whatever the case might be. It might be a little deeper than that. So I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared tonight. I do want to share some affirmations with you, just in case you are a taker, and to alert the givers on what they might need to help you with. Remember, affirmations should be done several times throughout the day. They're best when done first thing in the morning, when you're in a relaxed state, and your body, your subconscious, is better able to receive the information, or at night when you're winding down just before going to bed, when the same thing is true. Your body is able to be more receptive, because it's your subconscious mind that you're trying to change that drives and control everything. I've shared other videos on that too. So affirmations for takers. I am mindful of the needs and well-being of others. I am mindful of the needs and well-being of others. I am generous and supportive without expecting anything in return. I am generous and supportive without expecting anything in return. I appreciate and acknowledge the contributions of those around me. I appreciate and acknowledge the contribution of those that are around me. I prioritize the well-being of others over personal gain. I prioritize the well-being of others over personal gain. I am open to giving and help support others when needed. I am open to giving and help others with support when needed. I thought those were 5 simple ones, not too deep, but find time to go in and check that. And remember, there are givers and there are takers. We get to decide which one we want to be. And if our subconscious mind is telling us, you're a taker, you need to check that. Find time to check it. Positivity in Motion signing off. I do want to share with you again that I hope you wake up every morning knowing that you are special, you are unique. There is no one that will ever be on this side of life who can say they are you. You are created as one individual. You have been sent here for a specific purpose. Find your purpose and get on it. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and have a fantastic week.